Welcome to Ruby Thursdays Better Than Airbnb, Unit 3, Lesson 1, Add Location, Part 1. I'm your host, Melissa Wanish. This lesson starts the user story. As a host, I want to enter information about my location so that I can attract people to stay there. We're not going to fully complete this user story in this lesson, but we'll get it started. First, let's write our feature spec for location. In this lesson, I'm going to show you a different way to log in for a feature spec. We're going to be using Warden test helpers instead. We're going to have Factory Girl create a member, and then before the scenario, we're going to log in as the member for the scope member. We'll get that set up to work in just a moment. The first scenario is that a host creates a location. Now, host, we're meaning also member, so a member who has a location will eventually call a host. Location will belong to member. So we're going to visit the new member location path. We're going to fill in the location name with Faker superhero name. Now, you may notice I'm using Faker with only one F. That's because Faker with two Fs, although it's a little faster, does not have superhero. And I thought it would be super fun to have the location have a name of a superhero. So we're going to continue to use just plain Faker. We'll fill in the location address 1, address 2, the city, and we're going to call it a region as opposed to a state because we are going to let it be international. And we are going to go ahead and call it zip code, and then we're going to select US from country. In following lessons, I'll show you how to use the country select gem. We'll fill in the description and then create the location, and we'll expect to have the content location was successfully created. In order to get everything working for this test, we do need to add a couple configurations. So we're going to add the Warden test helper and our Faker with just one F. We're going to add in to our spec configure do in the Rails helper that we're going to include the Warden test helpers, and then we're going to put it in test mode. It gives us that method login as. Then we'll add just plain Faker to our gem file and bundle. Opening up the app in our text editor, let's go to Spec, Features, and make a new file for location spec.rb and save that. Now we'll include the spec that we just went over and saving it there. Let's go ahead and head over to our Rails helper so that we can add Warden to there. Let's add it at the end here. And we'll paste in the Warden configuration and we'll save that. And finally, let's add in Faker with one F to our gem file. And now we will bundle to include it. Now let's run the spec to see what we need to work on first. So we'll run our spec features, location spec. I'm going to run it just to make sure it's not broken, make sure everything is configured correctly. And there we go. We have an error, but that's to be expected. Now we know where to start. We need a new member location path. First up, we need to create location, and let's start with the model. I'm not going to scaffold location because a lot of the work that we've done on profile can be changed and modified to be used on location. So I'm going to build each piece individually, not as a scaffold. So first up is the model. We're going to generate just a plain model with location and then all of the attributes that I listed in the spec, including member ID to be an integer because it will belong to member. And then of course we will rake db migrate. In our terminal, let's paste in that long command and hit enter so that it will create our model. It's going to create some of the specs for us and things like that, so that's helpful. Okay, now of course I always like to go and look at the migration just to be sure I haven't missed something. All right, it all looks good, just double checking. Now back in our terminal, we'll run rake db migrate and it creates the table. Oh, I've just realized I am still on the master branch. If this ever happens to you, it's easy enough to move everything to a new branch. So let's get checkout -b and let's call this create location. There we go. Now we're on our new branch. This is a pretty full feature, so I'm going to go ahead and save what I'm doing right now. So let's actually see what we're doing first. So get status. and see what we have. That looks good. So now let's git add all of it and git commit. I like to put a message WIP in front to anyone looking at it on the GitHub account. Say, hey, that they're not done yet. And then I'll include a little message about what I've been working on. So I've added various things. Great. And now I will go ahead and push so that everything is saved. When you're working on a longer task, it's good to save all the time. Now let's fill out that location model spec that was created when we generated the model. You'll see that it's very similar to our profile spec. Instead, we're going to validate just the presence of name for now. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. So you can certainly copy paste from the presentation, but I'm going to show you if you didn't have a presentation and you had a similar model that you can reuse some of this code. So you're not rethinking everything all the time. So yes, it's very similar. So I'm just going to change out location instead of profile everywhere in this file since it's for location. So location, and now we're going to change name, and that's it. Now we will run that spec. So it's spec models location spec and see where we fail. Okay, great. So just 2 because the factory works by itself, but we need to put in validations and associations. Again, very similar to profile. It'll validate a few things and belong to member. So let's go head on over to models. And now actually I'm going to open up profile again, and well, I don't really need all of the attached profile stuff. I'm just going to copy what I need and then paste that into location and just edit what's different. So instead of bio, it's going to be name. Let's run the spec again, and now it passes. While we're working on models, let's go ahead and fix up our member model spec because now it's going to have a new association. So we need to add that test as well. This time we're going to allow the member to have many locations. Many superheroes have several bases, including Tony Stark, for example. So we're going to allow them to have many locations. We're going to open up the member spec instead, and then we will add that it should have many locations. Then in the member model, we just need to add has many locations. Let's go ahead and run the spec for the member model. It passes. That's it for this lesson of Better Than Airbnb, where we're starting to add our locations. It's going to take a couple of lessons to get through it. If you want more, please be sure to hit this big red button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you are not already on my mailing list, head on over to rubythursday.com to sign up to get some more awesomeness in your inbox. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I've been getting a lot of feedback. It's been great. Thanks again for watching, and see you soon.